The morning sky over Seoul turned dark red as massive shadows blocked out the sun. Ships bigger than entire city blocks floated silently above Earth, their black hulls stretching from horizon to horizon. People stopped on the streets, pointing up at the impossible sight, their phones capturing images that would soon flood every news channel on the planet. Captain Lee Miho gripped the metal railing of the Orbital Defense Station bridge, his knuckles white with tension. He had spent 15 years in space defending Earth's borders from asteroids and space debris, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Through the reinforced windows, he could see dozens of alien vessels hanging motionless around the planet like a necklace of death. Lieutenant Park Sora sat at her communication console, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the frequency controls. Strange signals were coming from everywhere at once, overwhelming their systems with data they couldn't understand. The young officer had graduated top of her class from the Space Academy, but her training had never covered first contact with hostile aliens. "Sir, something's happening," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "All our satellites are receiving the same transmission. It's being broadcast on every frequency we monitor." The main screen in front of them flickered to life, showing static at first, then slowly clearing to reveal something that made everyone on the bridge step back in fear. A creature stood before them, tall and imposing, wearing armor that seemed to be made of liquid metal. Its face was hidden behind a helmet, but its voice carried across space with terrifying clarity. "People of Earth," the alien spoke, and somehow his words appeared in every language at the same time. Subtitles scrolled across the bottom of the screen in Korean, English, Spanish, Arabic, and dozens of other languages. "I am Commander Vextar of the Hegemony Fleet. We have traveled across the galaxy, bringing order to chaos and civilization to primitive worlds." Miho felt his stomach drop. He had read the classified reports about strange radio signals detected from deep space over the past decade. Scientists had theorized about the possibility of an expanding alien empire, but most had dismissed it as unlikely. Now that theory stood before them, armed and dangerous. "Your species has been evaluated," Vextar continued, his words echoing through communication systems across the globe. "We have studied your history, your technology, and your potential. You have been found suitable for integration into our great empire. This is not a negotiation. This is an announcement." In the emergency bunker deep beneath the Blue House in Seoul, President Kim Jae-woo watched the same broadcast on a secure screen. Around him, his cabinet members sat in stunned silence, their faces pale with shock. The bunker had been built to withstand nuclear war, but it felt fragile now, like a paper box in the face of alien technology. 72 standard cycles, Vextar said, and a countdown timer appeared on every screen. "You will use this time to surrender all military assets, disband your armed forces, and prepare your population for relocation. Those who comply will be assigned work suitable to their abilities. Those who resist will be eliminated." Defense Minister Cho Hyun-woo leaned forward in his chair, his face grim. He had spent his entire career preparing for threats to national security, but this was beyond anything in the military handbooks. "Mr. President, our conventional forces are useless against this level of technology. Their ships don't even seem to be affected by gravity." President Kim slammed his fist on the conference table, making water bottles jump. 72 hours to surrender our entire civilization? Our freedom? Our children's future? This is complete madness. The alien commander's image seemed to look directly at each viewer, as if he could see into their homes, their hearts, their fears. "Do not mistake this for mercy. We have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your missiles cannot reach our fleet. Surrender is your only option for survival." Minister Cho quietly pulled up classified files on his tablet, his fingers moving carefully across the screen. The documents were marked with security levels so high that only 3 people in the government had access to them. "Mr. President," he said softly, "there might be an alternative. Something we've been working on for decades." "What are you talking about?" Kim asked, leaning closer. "Project Black Armada," Cho whispered. "The Ghost Fleet. It's been hidden from everyone, even from you, until now. We've been preparing for exactly this scenario since we first detected signs of an expanding alien empire 50 years ago." The president's eyes widened in disbelief. "A secret fleet? How is that possible?" "Admiral Yoon Dae-ho has been overseeing the project from hidden bases on the dark side of the moon and in asteroid fields where no one would look. Ships built with technology that officially doesn't exist, crewed by people who are legally dead according to all records." On every screen across Earth, the countdown continued ticking down. Panic spread through the streets as people realized that their governments had no apparent way to fight back. But in the depths of space, hidden in the shadows where even the most advanced alien sensors couldn't detect them, humanity's greatest secret began to stir. The aliens had made one critical mistake in their evaluation of Earth. They had looked at humanity's visible military strength and assumed it represented everything humans were capable of building. They had never considered that a species clever enough to split atoms and explore space might also be clever enough to hide its true capabilities until the moment they were needed most. With only 6 hours left on the countdown timer, President Kim Jong-un stood before the cameras in the Blue House press room. His face looked defeated, his shoulders slumped as if carrying the weight of the entire world. Behind him, the flags of South Korea and the United Nations hung motionless, symbols of a civilization about to surrender. "My fellow citizens of Earth," he began, his voice heavy with what sounded like despair. "After consulting with world leaders and our military experts, we have reached a difficult decision. We cannot fight an enemy with such advanced technology. Therefore, we accept the terms offered by Commander Vextar and the Hegemony Fleet." Across the globe, similar broadcasts played as leaders from every nation announced their surrender. The President of the United States spoke from the Oval Office. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom addressed Parliament. The Secretary-General of the United Nations delivered humanity's official capitulation to the alien fleet. In living rooms and public squares worldwide, people watched in stunned silence. Some wept. Others prayed. Many simply stared at their screens, unable to process that their freedom was ending after thousands of years of human civilization. But 3,000 kilometers above Earth's surface, hidden in the shadow of what appeared to be a broken communications satellite, something very different was happening. Commander Park Ji-hyun sat in the captain's chair of a ship that officially did not exist. The vessel was called the Silent Thunder, and it had been waiting in this exact position for 27 years. The ship was unlike anything in Earth's known military. Instead of the bulky metal construction of traditional spacecraft, the Silent Thunder seemed to be made of a dark material that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Its hull curved in impossible ways, as if the laws of physics bent around it like water around a stone. "Sir, we're receiving the activation code," reported Lieutenant Kim Nari from her position at the communications console. Her fingers moved across controls that looked more like living tissue than electronic equipment. "Admiral Yoon is broadcasting on the ghost frequency." The main screen flickered to life, showing an elderly man in a uniform that bore no national insignia. Admiral Yoon Dae-ho had been declared dead in an asteroid mining accident 30 years ago, but here he was, speaking from what appeared to be a massive command center carved into solid rock. "All Black Armada units, this is Control," the Admiral's voice carried across hidden channels that the alien fleet could not detect. "Operation Prometheus is now active. The time for hiding is over. Show them what humanity has been building in the dark." Commander Park smiled grimly as he entered his authorization codes. Around him, his crew moved with practiced efficiency. These men and women had been training for this moment since childhood, recruited from families who had volunteered to disappear from all official records. They were ghosts, legends, humanity's secret weapon. "Initiating decloak sequence," announced Chief Engineer Oh Sungmin from his station. "Fusion drives coming online. Quantum shields at full power." The space around Earth suddenly erupted with activity that the alien sensors had never detected. What the Hegemony Fleet had believed was empty space began to shimmer and twist as hundreds of ships materialized from nowhere. They emerged from behind asteroids, from the dark side of the moon, and from positions that should have been impossible to maintain without detection. On the Hegemony flagship, Commander Vextar stared at his tactical display in complete confusion. Red warning lights flashed across his control panels as his sensors tried to make sense of what they were seeing. "What are those readings? Our instruments detected no ships in this region." His tactical officer, a nervous subordinate named Crownx, ran the scans 3 times before daring to speak. "Sir, it appears the humans have been hiding a significant fleet using technology we cannot identify. Our sensors show over 300 vessels of unknown design. The Black Armada ships were beautiful and terrifying to behold. They moved like living creatures through space, their hulls seeming to breathe and pulse with inner light. Some were as small as fighters but moved with impossible grace. Others were massive battleships that dwarfed even the largest hegemony vessels, yet somehow remained nearly invisible to alien detection systems." Captain Lee Jae-min stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, a vessel so advanced that its construction had required the development of entirely new branches of science. The ship was built from materials that had been created atom by atom in secret laboratories, using processes that combined human engineering with discoveries made in the deepest reaches of space. "Open a channel to the alien fleet," he ordered his communications officer. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." The transmission reached every hegemony ship simultaneously, broadcasting on frequencies the aliens thought were impossible to use. Captain Lee's image appeared on their screens, showing a man in his 40s wearing a uniform of deep black marked only with a single silver star. "This is Captain Lee Jae-min of the Earth Defense Force Black Armada," he said, his voice calm and steady. "You demanded our surrender. Instead we offer you a choice. Leave our solar system immediately and never return, or discover why the galaxy should fear what humanity can accomplish when we put our minds to it." Commander Vextar felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest: genuine fear. The human fleet before him moved in ways that violated everything he understood about space warfare. Their ships seemed to exist in multiple positions at once, their weapons charged with energy that his sensors could not properly measure. "Impossible," he whispered. "How long have they been preparing for this?" His answer came as more ships continued to decloak around his fleet. The humans had not just been building a secret navy. They had been preparing for war since before any of his crew had been born, turning their entire civilization into a trap that was now closing around the hegemony fleet. The first attack came not from guns or missiles, but from something far more dangerous: human cleverness. Deep inside the cyber warfare vessel Ghost Protocol, Lieutenant Colonel Shin Yena sat surrounded by screens showing alien communication networks. Her fingers moved across a keyboard that had taken 20 years to build, each key connected to computers more powerful than anything publicly known to exist. "Target locked," she announced to her team of specialist hackers. The alien fleet uses a single command frequency for all ship-to-ship communication. Their entire military structure depends on rigid hierarchy and instant obedience to orders from above. Her second-in-command, Major Lim Woo-jin, watched the data streams flowing across his monitors. "That's their strength, but it's also their weakness. If we can disrupt their chain of command, they'll be paralyzed." Shin Yena smiled as she prepared to launch humanity's most sophisticated weapon, a computer virus designed by Earth's greatest minds working together. Linguists had studied alien communication patterns for decades. Programmers had reverse-engineered captured alien technology. Psychologists had analyzed how authoritarian societies function and fail. "Releasing the Babel virus now, Admiral," she said into her headset, knowing that Admiral Yoon was listening from his hidden command center. The virus spread through the hegemony fleet faster than light itself, carried by the same communication signals the aliens used to coordinate their attack. It was beautiful in its simplicity. Instead of destroying their systems, it changed their meaning. Orders became suggestions. Commands became questions. Military ranks became meaningless symbols. On the hegemony flagship, Commander Vextar watched his tactical display with growing panic. Ships throughout his fleet were requesting confirmation of orders he had never given. Some were reporting that their weapon systems had been ordered to stand down. Others claimed they had received commands to retreat from positions he needed them to hold. "Sir, the destroyer wing is asking if they should attack the human vessels or protect them," reported his communications officer, confusion clear in his voice. "What? I gave no such orders," Vextar shouted. "Tell them to maintain their attack formation." "I've been trying, sir, but our messages aren't getting through properly. The ships are receiving contradictory information from multiple sources, all claiming to be authorized command channels." The virus worked exactly as designed, turning the aliens' greatest strength into their greatest weakness. For centuries, the hegemony had conquered worlds by overwhelming them with perfectly coordinated fleets following precise battle plans. Now their own ships were turning on each other, their crews confused and afraid as their command structure collapsed into chaos. 3 kilometers away from the alien flagship, Captain Song Tae-hyun prepared to demonstrate the next phase of humanity's strategy. His fighter, the Wraith, looked nothing like traditional spacecraft. It was sleek and organic, resembling a living creature more than a machine. Its hull seemed to shift and change as he moved the controls, responding to his thoughts as much as his hands. "Quantum coherence drive active," he reported calmly to the fleet command. "Beginning systematic dismantling of their shield grid." Song had been training for this mission since he was 12 years old, selected for his unique ability to interface with quantum technology that most humans couldn't even understand. The Wraith was more than a ship. It was an extension of his own mind, capable of existing in multiple locations at the same time through controlled manipulation of quantum probability. He activated the drive and suddenly the Wraith was everywhere and nowhere. On alien sensors, the ship appeared to be attacking from 6 different directions simultaneously. Their targeting systems couldn't lock onto something that existed in multiple quantum states at once. Impossible, breathed the hegemony weapons officer as he watched his shots pass harmlessly through empty space where the human fighter had been just moments before. Song smiled as he guided his ship through the alien shield barriers as if they were made of nothing more substantial than light. His weapons, charged with exotic matter that humanity had learned to create in hidden laboratories, struck alien hull plating with devastating precision. Each shot disabled critical systems without destroying the ships entirely, leaving the alien crews alive but helpless. Throughout the battle zone, other Black Armada vessels demonstrated technology that violated everything the aliens thought they knew about warfare. Ships that could become temporarily intangible, passing through solid matter like ghosts. Fighters that moved by bending space around themselves rather than using conventional engines. Weapons that fired controlled microsingularities, creating gravitational fields that crushed alien armor from the inside out. Commander Vextar watched his mighty fleet falling apart before his eyes. Ships that had conquered entire star systems were being disabled by human vessels that moved like dancing shadows. His weapons couldn't hit targets that existed in multiple dimensions at once. His shields couldn't stop attacks that came from directions that shouldn't exist in normal space. What kind of warfare is this? He demanded of his tactical staff. They're not just attacking our ships, they're attacking our ability to think, to coordinate, to function as a military force. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans didn't just fight with superior technology, they fought with imagination, creativity, and a deep understanding of how to turn an enemy's strengths into weaknesses. Every assumption the hegemony had made about combat, about physics, about the nature of reality itself, was being proven wrong by creatures they had dismissed as primitive. As more alien ships fell silent, their crews overwhelmed by confusion and technological failure, it became clear that this was not just a battle. It was a lesson in what happened when bullies encountered someone who had spent decades preparing to fight back in ways they could never have imagined. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, in caverns carved from solid rock over decades of secret construction, Admiral Yundeho stood before a wall of screens showing the battle raging around Earth. The hidden base called Sanctuary stretched for kilometers underground, housing technology and personnel that officially did not exist. Around him, officers moved with quiet efficiency, coordinating an operation 50 years in the making. "Sir, all Earth defense units report successful engagement," announced Colonel Park Minji from her command station. "The alien fleet is in complete disarray. Their communication systems are compromised, and 17 of their capital ships have been disabled." Admiral Yoon nodded, but his expression remained serious. The battle for Earth was always going to be the easy part. Now we find out if the rest of our plan worked. He turned to face the room full of officers, men and women who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment. Phase 2 is now active. All deep space Black Armada units begin liberation protocol. 3 star systems away from Earth, Major Kim Soyoung received the coded transmission aboard her stealth cruiser Phantom. She had been waiting in the cold darkness of space for 6 weeks, her ship hidden in the shadow of an asteroid field near the hegemony's largest military shipyard. Around her, invisible to alien sensors, dozens of other human vessels waited like sleeping predators. "All units, this is Phantom Leader," she broadcast on the secure channel. "The signal has been given. Begin emergence sequence on my mark." She looked out at the massive alien construction facility, a structure the size of a small moon where the hegemony built their most powerful warships. Mark. The space around the shipyard suddenly filled with human vessels as they dropped their stealth systems and activated their weapons. The alien workers and guards had no warning, no time to prepare. One moment they were going about their routine tasks, the next they were surrounded by ships that had appeared from nowhere. Back on Earth, Commander Vextar stared at his command display in horror as reports flooded in from across hegemony space. Human ships were attacking facilities in 17 different star systems simultaneously. Shipyards, supply depots, communication relays, and military bases were all under assault by forces that shouldn't exist. "This is impossible," he shouted at his tactical officer. "How are there human ships throughout our territory? Our fastest scouts took months to travel from their world to our nearest outpost. They couldn't have traveled faster than light." His communications officer looked up from her console, her face pale with shock. "Sir, we're receiving similar reports from the Nexus sector, the Rim territories and even the core worlds. Human vessels are appearing everywhere, attacking our installations with coordinated precision. What the hegemony didn't understand was that humanity had been preparing for this war long before the alien fleet arrived at Earth. Using technology reverse-engineered from crashed alien probes discovered decades earlier, human scientists had developed their own version of faster-than-light travel. It wasn't as fast as hegemony ships, but it was completely undetectable. Captain Choi Sang-wook stood on the bridge of what had once been the hegemony destroyer Dominion. His boarding team had captured the alien vessel during the initial chaos, and now he commanded it with a mixed crew of humans and liberated alien prisoners. The ship's original captain lay unconscious in the medical bay, alive but defeated. "You never asked the right question, did you?" Choi said to the captured alien tactical officer who was being forced to help operate the ship's systems. "You wondered if we could match your technology. You should have wondered what we could do with 50 years of preparation and the knowledge that bullies like you existed." The alien officer, a creature called Thexmara, looked at him with something approaching respect despite being a prisoner. "How long have you been planning this war?" "Since we first detected your empire's expansion pattern," Choi replied. "We saw what you did to the crystalline worlds. We studied the destruction of the hive collectives. We knew you would come for us eventually, so we prepared." He gestured at the screens showing human ships throughout hegemony space. "Every probe you sent to scout our system, every communication you thought was secret. We were listening, learning, planning." The tide of battle had not just turned, it had reversed completely. The hegemony, accustomed to overwhelming primitive worlds with superior technology and numbers, found themselves facing an opponent that fought with weapons they couldn't understand. Imagination, adaptability, and the focused fury of a species that had spent generations preparing to defend their freedom. At the Kepler shipyard, Major Kim watched as her engineers began the delicate process of liberating the alien workers. Many were slaves from conquered worlds, forced to build ships for their oppressors. Others were low-ranking hegemony citizens who had never chosen to be part of an empire built on conquest and submission. "This is Major Kim of the Earth Liberation Force," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You are no longer prisoners. You are no longer slaves. Any who wish to fight for freedom are welcome to join us. Any who wish to return home will be given safe passage." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the facility, workers began sabotaging the half-built warships they had been forced to construct. Guards who had been oppressed by the rigid hegemony hierarchy turned on their officers. The great military machine that had conquered hundreds of worlds was collapsing from within as its victims finally had the chance to fight back. Admiral Yoon smiled as reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy. The plan was working better than he had dared to hope. The hegemony had made the fatal mistake of underestimating not just humanity's technology, but their capacity for long-term strategic thinking and their refusal to accept defeat as inevitable. 3 days had passed since the alien ultimatum expired, and the galaxy had changed forever. Commander Vextar knelt on the polished floor of what had once been his own command bridge, his hands bound behind his back with restraints made from his own ship's metal. The proud warrior who had conquered dozens of worlds now found himself in the exact position he had planned to force humanity into: total defeat. Admiral Yoon Daeho stood before the massive viewport of the former hegemony flagship, now renamed Liberation. The ship had been completely transformed in just 72 hours. Where once alien symbols of conquest and domination had decorated the walls, now hung flags representing hundreds of different species that had been freed from hegemony rule. Around the bridge, beings from across the galaxy worked side by side with human officers. A tall, crystalline creature from the Andromeda sector operated communication systems alongside Lieutenant Kim Hanna. A small, furry alien who had been enslaved for 30 years now helped coordinate supply routes with Major Eugene Su. The bridge hummed with dozens of different languages as former enemies became allies in the cause of freedom. "You demanded our surrender," Admiral Yoon said quietly, looking down at the defeated alien commander. His voice was not angry or cruel, but filled with the quiet satisfaction of justice finally served. "Instead, you're going to witness something your empire never allowed its subjects to experience: true freedom of choice." Vextar raised his head, confusion and something like wonder in his alien eyes. "I don't understand. Why haven't you enslaved us? Why haven't you taken our worlds for your own empire? That is what victory means." Captain Park Yunhai approached from her coordination station, carrying a tablet filled with reports from across the galaxy. She had spent the last 3 days managing the largest liberation operation in galactic history, coordinating with rebel groups on hundreds of worlds simultaneously. "Sir, I have the latest updates from the liberation fleets," she reported to Admiral Yoon. "We've successfully freed the Zephyrian colonies in Sector 7. The population there is celebrating their first free elections in over 2 centuries. The Crystalline Collective has formally agreed to join the new Galactic Federation we're establishing. She scrolled through more reports, her face glowing with the satisfaction of work well done. The robotic synthesis worlds are requesting human technical assistance to repair the damage done during hegemony occupation. They want to learn our engineering techniques so they can rebuild their civilization. And sir, we're receiving requests for membership in the Federation from species we haven't even met yet. Word is spreading faster than our ships can travel. Vextar listened to these reports with growing amazement. In his culture, victory meant domination, conquest, the subjugation of the weak by the strong. The idea that the humans would defeat his empire only to immediately begin freeing its subjects rather than ruling them was incomprehensible to his warrior mind. How? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How did a single world defeat an empire that spanned 1,000 systems? We had technology, numbers, experience. We had conquered civilizations far more advanced than yours. Admiral Yoon sat down in a chair across from the kneeling alien commander, bringing himself to eye level. You made a fundamental error, Vextar. You assumed that because we were younger as a spacefaring species, we were weaker. You never considered that our youth might actually be our greatest strength. The Admiral gestured toward the viewport, where human and alien ships worked together to distribute supplies to liberated worlds. You spent centuries perfecting the art of conquest, but you never learned the science of cooperation. You built your entire civilization on the idea that some beings are meant to rule and others are meant to serve. We built ours on the idea that everyone deserves the chance to choose their own destiny. Through the great windows of the ship, the transformation of the galaxy was visible. Human vessels moved between former hegemony worlds, but they carried teachers, doctors, and engineers rather than soldiers and administrators. On planet after planet, species that had been enslaved for generations were learning to govern themselves again, guided by human advisors who would leave as soon as they were no longer needed. Captain Park received another communication and smiled as she read it. Admiral, we just received word from the Outer Rim territories. The hegemony garrison at Proxima Station has surrendered without a fight. Their commander said his troops refused to continue fighting for an empire that no longer exists. The rebellion against hegemony rule was spreading faster than any military campaign could have achieved. Species that had been oppressed for centuries were rising up, not to conquer their oppressors, but to reclaim their right to exist as free beings. The example set by humanity's victory was inspiring enslaved populations across the galaxy to demand their own liberation. Vextar watched a group of his former officers being led away, not to execution or imprisonment, but to what the humans called rehabilitation centers, where they would learn to live in a society based on cooperation rather than domination. What will happen to me? He asked. Admiral Yoon stood and walked toward the viewport. You'll stand trial for your crimes, judged by representatives of all the species you conquered. But even you will have the chance to choose a different path. That's what freedom means. Everyone gets to decide who they want to be. As Vextar was gently helped to his feet and led away, he heard Admiral Yoon's voice echoing through the ship's communication system, broadcast to every vessel in the Liberation Fleet. Let it be known throughout the galaxy. Earth does not kneel, and neither should anyone else. The age of empires is over. The age of cooperation has begun.